Don't tell me not to live just in fun. Life's candy and the sun's up all above. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. Don't tell me not to fly, I simply got to. If someone takes a spill, it's me and not you. Who told you you're allowed to rain?
Hi, and welcome to episode 1 of Series 2. We're at the second series already. Where has the time gone? Can't believe that Series 1's finished. Wow. Anyway, we're here. We are here on the day that we got a bit of exciting news for the UK. For the first small step for theatres to reopen, Boris Johnson, our best friend in Britain, has said that theatres can reopen from the 1st of August with a social distanced cast and socially distanced audience. How that's going to work, we don't know, but we'll wait and find out. Anyway, back to now, and we are joined today, I am delighted to say, by the wonderful Christina Bianco. Now, you'll know her from loads of different things, but she's dubbed the Girl of 1,000 Voices. She was in The Imitation Game in the UK on ITV, which is how ITV TV audiences, UK TV audiences will know her. But her West End debut was at the Vaudeville in Forbidden Broadway. She was narrator in Joseph at Drury Lane, not the London one, the Illinois one. And then she was also in this small musical. She played, I think it's Fanny Bryce. I think that's quite a low-down character. In Funny Girl at the Theatre, Maragini's production of Funny Girl in Paris, nonetheless. But anyway, we'll talk about that and lots more. So let's welcome Christina Bianco.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me and for that lovely introduction.
Thank you for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure. Like, I've got to say, a bit fangirling, I've got to say.
And may I just say, I love the glitter on your jacket because
I had to make an effort, I had to make an effort.
You knew I was going to show up with some form of glitter. I'm a little obsessed.
Yes, had to make some effort, So thank you for joining us. It really is genuinely a pleasure. It'll be good to get to know you over the next wee while. And get to know and get the fans to ask the questions, because what we find is we have lots of interviews and they're all great. Every interview is great, but some of them don't ask what the fans want to know.
Right, it's always good. So thank you. I'm happy to answer those questions.
The fans are started, but we'll start with the starter for 2, which is all the West End Talk fans will know is the same questions that we ask every day. And the first one is, what got you into performing?
I was one of those little kids that always was singing along to the radio and the movie musicals. I was the kid that would jump up on the couch and start belting out a song in the middle of a dinner party. I always wanted to perform. It was just something that was in me. Nobody had to, coax it out of me or encourage me to do it. It's funny because as I've got older, I'm more timid than I was when I was young. But I think it's often the way. You have no inhibitions when you're little, right?
Yeah, kids don't have.
Yeah, so my parents, they knew that I had just a desire to perform. So they put me in dance classes, because I had 2 left feet, dance classes and voice lessons, and I auditioned for all the shows that I could from about age 7.
Brilliant. So you talked about auditioning for shows from age 7. What was your first role that you remember having?
In a lot of interviews and a lot of my shows, I've talked about how my first show ever was in The Wizard of Oz. It was a kids' production that was cast as the Munchkin, but they let me sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow as a solo at the very end of it because I sang it well for 7. And I thought, oh, that's so cute. I also had my front teeth missing, so I looked ridiculous singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So that was the first show I did. But the big thing for me, and I never really say this, was my first role in a show, like the name character. And that was right after that. I auditioned for Molly and Annie, and I got it. And it was a big deal. It was the first time I had to memorize lines. It was my mama, Annie. We was riding on the ferry boat. Like, I still remember them because I was so nervous about getting my lines right. So yeah, Molly and Annie, that was my first real role on stage. And, the Wizard of Oz show was outside, like a little sort of children's traveling theater. But this, was in a theater with production and lights and a big audience. And so that was the one that really, that I really remember as your first role. Launched my real career, yeah.
Yeah, great. You've done loads, as we said in the introduction, and we'll cover most of your jobs that you've done. I'll say most, a lot of them. I don't know if we can cover them all.
No, we will conveniently leave out certain ones that I'd rather not talk about anyway.
That's fine. So we'll just not talk about this one then. We'll not discuss this.
Well, I think I could be persuaded to talk about the one behind you. Just twist my arm just a little bit.
Right. So from now on, we hold no responsibility for the questions. These all come from fans of yours or fans of shows that you have been in.
All right.
But we're going to touch on something that you are famous for outside of theatre, particularly. Like, you do it in theatres, but you're not. It's not a traditional musical theatre thing.
Right.
And that's your impressions. You are
impressions,
an impressionist.
Yeah. No, it's really funny. Sorry, I mean to cut you off.
No,
I'm
you
Italian.
go.
I'm going to keep doing that. So just shush me out.
I'll just let you.
No, I was going to say that it's one of those things where I never would have imagined that people would be asking me about impressions in my life. Like the fact that it's become such a big part of my career, I'm so grateful. But to this day, it still surprises me. It's like I just never would have imagined that would have been possible.
With talent like yours, there's no wonder why we're still asking. Like the talent of the impressions are fantastic. But Callum wants to know, when did you first realise that you could do impressions?
My parents realized before I did, because they would hear me like singing along to movies and songs on the radio. And the story goes that my parents heard me singing along to Judy Garland singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow in The Wizard of Oz. And I have no idea what it sounded like because I was like, 5 years old. But they said that they heard me stop singing it in my little kid voice and sort of like try to put on a deeper voice and sing it like her. And my mom was like, is she trying to do an impression of Judy Garland? So it was something that I did very naturally. I had an ear for mimicry. I remember like a teacher in school would always say, it's time for lunch, see you in 30 minutes. And that little ring, but with her accent, it was, it's time for lunch, see you in 30 minutes. And I would like reenact it for the kids on the playground to come home from school and tell my mom. My mom was like, no, don't do that because the teacher could hear you, you could get in trouble. And I was like, what? So it was something I just did. I never was like, hey, everybody, here's my impression. Watch me do this. I mean, it really took me till Forbidden Broadway to even do impressions in public. So I didn't take it seriously, I can honestly say, until I was working in theater, voiceover work, just working performer. And people would say, who can do, the voice of a little kid? And I would raise my hand and say, I think I can do a voice of a kid, or who can do an old lady? Oh, I can try. And so they kept saying, oh, you're very versatile. You take direction very well. And your voice is so flexible and you're a good mimic. So I remembered that. And as you get older, you start looking at audition notices. Sometimes they want an impression of somebody or sounds like so-and-so. Yeah. So it was only something, it took years of me doing it to really kind of realize it was a skill that not everybody could do.
No, that's certainly not something everybody can do, no.
Yeah, so that's the, I love that that's a short version for me, but that's like the Cliff Notes version. The only time I remember people going, oh my God, you sound just like that person, do it again, was, the first time I remember was at a party. I was singing along to Celine Dion's song, That's the Way It Is. You know that song? You're very young. But...
Yes, no, I know. I know Celine Dion. Don't you worry. You don't wear glitter and not know who Celine Dion is, darling.
Well, never assume. But I just remember thinking I was singing along kind of for fun and doing her little voice, and everyone was like, "Wait a minute, everyone, come over here, watch Christina do this." And that was the first time eyes were on me, and I was like, "Okay, let me do the Celine Dion voice I sometimes do to amuse myself and my parents." And that was when I remember thinking, oh, this is something. And that was like high school. So
yeah,
that's my rambly answer for you.
Fantastic. I like rambling answers, don't worry. There's no right or long length of answers. So Lydia kind of goes on from there and says, how do you decide who to impersonate and how difficult is it to learn a new voice?
Deciding who to impersonate, at first it was easy because if you want to make a list of like big classic musical divas of different eras, you can make that list, right? Of the people Shirley Bassey, Edith Piaf, Barbra Streisand, like these are big names that are known, not just in America, but in Europe as well. And then there were the pop personalities that were topical at the time, like Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Celine Dion. So in that regard, it was easier because they were really well known, not only to everybody, but to me. Yeah. So it was sort of like, who's popular? Well, then let me see if I can do the voice. And then if I thought I could do it, obviously there's a lot of practice, which we'll get into next, but there's a whole canon of material to choose from. There's albums and albums. And when it comes to speaking impressions, the big famous actors, there are movies, and there are, thanks to YouTube, which wasn't always around, you know, you can watch them doing interviews and really get the sound of their voice. And with a lot of the pop singers today, and this will lead me into the second question, second part of that question, it's difficult because a lot of singers, like a Lady Gaga or whatnot, when they first came out, all of the sound on their albums were this weird auto-processed, auto-tuned thing. It was meant to sound digitized. And there wasn't a lot of footage of them singing live. And then, so even if I said, well, I can sound like Lady Gaga singing live, the audience doesn't know that sound. They know her from the recording. But for the recording, you need to be in the mic and go, ba, 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 right? Like you need the reverb and you need that stuff. So it was a learning curve, because what I had been doing to learn voices like Judy Garland and Liza Minnelli was no longer applicable. When someone's like, can you do Demi Lovato? And I still don't do her. Even though on one video it says I'm doing her, I was like, that was terrible. I'm never doing that again. But you know, it's like, it's much harder because a lot of the singers today sound alike because of the way that it's popular, you know, for them to be produced. And so that's what's hard about that part of it. When you're learning an impression, some of them will come more easily than others. Like Celine Dion, her voice is not that different from mine. I'm not saying I have her ability or her range or all that. I just mean the tone of her voice. Her speaking voice, to do her speaking voice, for me, it is basically my voice, but with the accent and the emphasis, and of course I make the faces and the chest bound to go with it. But it's not that different from mine. But if you wanted me to do Liza Minnelli, I have to go up and I have to go down, and I have to make it sound like there's grit in my voice. You know, it's that sort of that little crack in my voice there. That some days my voice is clear as a bell, and that's usually a great day. Except that'll be the day somebody says, "Can you do Liza Minnelli?" And like, you know, who else is raspy? Even singers like Tina Turner, I don't really do, because I don't have a raspy enough voice to pull it off. And I can approximate it, but at what cost? Because I always feel like if it hurts my voice, I'm not doing it. If it's damaging to my voice, I'm not doing it. So there are plenty of impressions that no matter how hard I try, it's just I'm incapable of doing, or I won't do because it would hurt me. You know what? So maybe I can't do a Tina Turner, but I can do a Kristen Chenoweth. So it's like, you know, you win some, you lose some. And I'm still battling when it comes to speaking impressions. That's hard as well, because with singing, you sometimes get isms and phrases, right? Like when they sing something, Aguilera tends to do that growl, and you can almost put that into any place of a song. People will know you're doing her. Celine Dion and Adele have a little yodel sometimes, a little yodel and stuff like that. Like you pick things. And also riffs. I mean, Ariana Grande almost always goes, she flips up into her little flip over there.
She does, yeah.
Okay, a lot of times these people are changing the pattern of speech. Sometimes they're playing someone who's very timid, and sometimes they're playing someone who's really excited. So it's harder to do an impression of someone who is inconsistent in how we've heard them. So there's a lot of trial and error, lots of weird voices and faces, because sometimes I can sound like somebody, but if my face looks nothing like them, and I obviously don't have a face like a chameleon, you know, I definitely have a distinct look. It's my own. I'm very short, you know, so you sort of find the ways you can do it. So sometimes it's the facial expression or facial tick, like Drew Barrymore. Lots of people can do Drew Barrymore impression because they know that she goes down almost all the time, even if she goes up and brings her back down. And they also know that she has a slight lisp. So as an impression, I would exaggerate that lisp a little bit and give her as many S's to say as possible. But if I don't talk out of the side of my mouth the way she does, I almost can't do the impression. Like I almost can't do it because I've practiced it for so long, copying her face. Yeah. So yeah, it's a weird, wacky process, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, but you got to try.
That's it, and it's definitely it's like singing. It's like certain notes you can't hit, and you never will, and things like that. So it's similar to that in that aspect.
As much as we don't want to hear this, as we get older, certain things get easier and certain things get harder. I mean, some people say, oh my gosh, I opened up all these different high notes in soprano, but not belt, or vice versa as they got older. So who knows? I mean, when I get really old, maybe I'll finally be able to do Tina Turner. We don't know, but we're going to.
At that point, it may be too late.
Yeah, exactly.
there'll be somebody else new. No, I don't think Tina
no,
Turner will
no,
ever.
no, but you're right. You're right. People be like, who's that? You know, so you got to choose your battles.
I think Tina Turner will never go out of fashion. Don't worry. She'll be one you'll be getting asked for in years to come. But Robert wants to know who's your favourite person to impersonate.
Ooh, okay, Robert. So I've said Celine Dion many times in interviews. I think because she's one of the ones that comes the most easily to me, and because I am a kind of obsessive super fan, like I always was. So I know her material very well. But as you all know, as people watching and listening know, I don't just like singing Celine Dion songs as Celine Dion. I like to know how she would sound doing a Julie Andrews song or Billie Eilish, you know. So because I have an understanding as a super fan of Celine Dion, I feel like I know how she might interpret those songs. So
Yeah.
it makes it more playful and fun as opposed to like, oh my gosh, I don't know as much about, you know, let's say it's Ariana Grande. I don't know as much about her. So how would she interpret, you know, this Broadway standard? So Celine is one of my favorites, not just because she's sort of timeless and everybody knows her, even kids today know her. So she's just sort of a good go-to impression, but because I can play with her more, because it's a little bit easier, but it's just sort of because I have that crazy knowledge of her. And my other favorite is just old school Bernadette Peters, big Broadway, and of course she's a big has been in lots of movies and TV shows, but she's known for her Broadway work. And Bernadette has a very specific voice that is not at all like my own, and it's a fun one. It doesn't not I shouldn't say it doesn't hurt, because I wouldn't do the impressions that really hurt, but it's a very safe placement. It's a very safe and sort of covered in the back of my throat. Like I'm not doing it like that, but it's in the back of my throat. So
face as well.
yeah. Well, again, I'm not even trying to put my chin out, but sort of when I was trained to do Bernadette Peters in person, like in public, not just in my house, for Forbidden Broadway, they're very big on how she's got this chin. In fact, one of the actresses that did Forbidden Broadway always put cotton balls in her mouth right here when she went out on stage to do it. And she said that it, of course, helped the look be funny, but also that it helped her with the placement. So maybe it's because I spent so long watching her and she does sort of pout when she sings, so it's this little Betty Bloop type thing. Or maybe it's because of what Forbidden Broadway taught me. But now when I do it, my chin goes forward a little bit. So the reason I like doing her is because she is one of the people that really inspired me to do theater. I always loved Judy Garland, and she was one of my first idols. And I talk about her a lot in press and all that because she was my parents say my first impression and all that. But Bernadette Peters is the one that I've seen live in concert growing up. My favorite musical is Into the Woods, and of course she was the witch in that originally. And I love Sunday in the Park with George. She was just like the Broadway icon for me. And then I got to see her in movies and on TV shows. And so I guess because she has that special place in my heart, and she's an Italian girl from New York. Yes. She's my other favorite. Yeah, she's got my heart.
Definitely. For anybody that doesn't know Bernadette Peters, apologies, in case anybody's watching at home and doesn't know her, then why are you watching for a start? But no, I'm joking.
No, we educate. We'll educate you.
Yes, she's like the Broadway's version of Elaine Page, you would say, wouldn't she?
Yeah, good example. Yeah.
It's like she's a lot bigger. No offense to Elaine Page, but obviously anybody that makes Broadway's massive, especially to Bernadette Peters. But she was most recently in Hello Dolly, wasn't she? I was right in saying? She was
the replacement for Bette Midler in Hello Dolly.
So have a research. She's a fantastic performer. I think that's the closest I'll ever get to talking to her, is listening to you doing an impression, I'm sure.
Yeah, Bernadette Peters to me is so special because she's one of those performers like a Patti LuPone. They were both very popular at the same time. In fact, most people either love one or the other and don't love both. Mm-hmm. It's dramatic, particularly in the New York theater scene.
I'm a both.
And they're both lovely, feisty, Italian, quirky, petite women. So I love them both. But Bernadette's the one that just happened to really, I don't know, just touch my heart. But the thing about her is that she's so unique in the way that she speaks and the way that she acts. She used to dress in a particular way. She always has that beautiful curly hair. In fact, when she was hired for shows, she said, please, can I have the hair be curly? So blonde, red, brown, no matter what. They always made the wigs look like her hair. She's iconic. And I think that sort of distinct personality and that distinct look and that distinct funny voice when she speaks and when she sings, like it's very specific. What I call it is, it's distinct. And being distinct sometimes means being a little interesting, a little unlike everybody else.
Yeah.
And I have found, not as a total insult here, but I'm very often let down that when I go see shows today, almost everybody sounds the same to me. I think that things tend to be cast these days in quite a safe manner. Productions are much harder to put up, much more expensive. They don't want to take as many risks. And also, I think that a lot of more theater schools have popped up. They're training people to sing in a very correct way, a very specific way. I think we're just getting a lot of people with a lot of the same sounds out there. And I wonder if someone like Patti LuPone or Bernadette Peters, if they were out today, would even make it past the first round of auditions. So that's one of the reasons I really like her too, because I think the reason that I can impersonate a lot of these people, and way more of the voices that were from the past are more recognizable than the voices of today. I just think people have to take more chances and be a little more gutsy, myself included, because I do sing as me, not just impressions.
You do,
and
yes.
sometimes I'm like, are you singing that like you think you should, or you're singing that the way that you really want to? So you got to take risks, because they always say, what's that famous quote? I forgot who said it, but it's like, basically you don't want to be like anybody else, like somebody else, because that person already exists. You want to be like you. And so even as somebody who does impressions, I do have to say that to myself quite a bit. So.
Very true. You're part of your job is being somebody else.
Yeah, a delicate balance.
Yes, yeah. Part of your job. We'll come to you, the singing, as Christina later. A couple more questions about the impressions. Mm-hmm. Paul wants to know who's been the hardest to learn so far.
Paul, we could do this for a long time. The hardest to learn. This question continues, because there are some people that I've been working on for years, but you guys have never heard. I have been trying to do a Betty Buckley impression, big Broadway performer, the original Grisabella and Cats. She's an icon, and I can do people that have similar vocal qualities to her. She has a very fast vibrato. They call it a shotgun vibrato. Brrr, not shotgun, machine gun vibrato, brrr, like that. And she is similar in that way to Edith Piaf, to, in some respects, the speed of the vibrato of Dolly Parton, although a totally different tone. The Broadway performer Alice Ripley. They all have these really fast vibratos. So I should be able to do her, but there's just some bit of her tone that I can't approximate. So I try that like on a weekly basis, and I'm still not happy with it, Paul. So Betty Buckley's in there. There were some really popular singers that, again, you really haven't seen me or heard me do, because they don't have distinct enough isms, or like I was saying, you don't have something that makes their voice really unique and individual. Yeah. So I have been asked a million times, and I've probably lost a lot of money saying no to voiceover work, voice matching work, where people want me to sound like Taylor Swift. To me, I can't do it. Like my natural tone isn't enough like hers where I can just open my mouth and sound like her. There could be somebody on the street that has a voice much more like Taylor Swift than I do. They don't even have to do an impression. But there's nothing for me to pull. There's nothing for me to exaggerate and exaggerate. I say that in a loving way, not like I'm going to poke fun of them and pull this way. But there needs to be some distinct sound that everyone hears and instantly knows that's her. So anytime I'm asked to do somebody like that, it's really frustrating, because it's almost impossible for me to do. I've had to do it. And the last one I'll say is again, you haven't really heard it. I've been working on 2 TV personalities. I want to do Jane Krakowski, who everyone knows from 30 Rock or Kimmy Schmidt.
Right, yes. Mm-hmm.
And I want to do Amy Poehler. Amy Poehler, from the TV show, you'd know, Parks and Rec. I've watched her for years on Saturday Night Live and all that, and Joy in the movie Inside Out. I do a voice like hers. I do a voice like her all the time. I do anyone that sounds like that. I even do a pretty decent Joy voice match for this thing I had to do, but it's really not Amy Poehler, and it's killing me. I have all the right bits. I should be able to get it. But
you just can't put that. You've got all the pieces, but you can't put the jigsaw together.
Yeah, I can't yet.
You'll get there.
Long answer. My answers are too long. We'll be here all week. I'm so sorry.
Sorry. Cameron wants to know, is there someone, I think you've kind of answered this question, but we'll ask it anyway. Is there someone you wanted to learn but can't grasp? But you've kind of answered that.
Yeah, it's the same. It's sort of the same thing for me. And I will say I could have answered Paul's question differently, and I could have said the hardest people are anybody whose voice is very dissimilar to my own. Like I still think I do a completely horrendous Cher impression because her voice is so deep, not just her singing voice, her speaking voice. And for me to even get down there, for me to even get down there, once I'm down there, there's no flexibility. I can't play, I can't color it. So I sometimes go, why bother? So that, yeah, I mean, she's somebody, it's like I can do her for a moment, particularly if I put her next to somebody like Kristen Chenoweth and I say, Kristen, sang this line, and I sang that line, and I just do the voice switch quickly. Not like that, that was terrible. But, you know, if I figure out where to put it, then I can balance it out. So that's the frustrating bit. That's like the people. It's like, I want to do it, but I can't do it the way that I want to. It's just so different from my own voice.
Yeah. And Cher would have been a good one to have in your catalogue recently, obviously. With
I know.
Too.
Everybody wants me to do it. And it's just like, just go listen to Stephanie J. Block on the Cher Show recording and just let her have it.
Yeah, go for her. She's there.
She's the best.
Anyway, Savannah says, who was your inspirations growing up for everything?
Savannah? Savannah, my inspirations growing up, I touched on it already. For theater, it was very much Bernadette Peters. I loved everything about her on stage. Bernadette Peters on stage. Music, I didn't listen to that much pop music other than Celine Dion, to be honest with you. I always loved old school music, standards and swing. So I listened to a lot of Ella Fitzgerald and Nancy Wilson. Two of my all-time favorites from that genre are Keely Smith and Edie Gourmet. I talk about them a lot, and I try to do a lot of their numbers in my shows. Another singer I love who has performance radio tie-ins, musical tie-ins is Betty Hutton. Betty Hutton is a really funny singer, actress, like really comedic actress. And she had this gorgeous voice, but she was always known for these wacky roles. And almost all of my live concerts, and even on my live album, I have Betty Hutton songs. She always inspired me. She was the one who started the Annie Get Your Gun film. Like Judy Garland couldn't do it, and they went a totally different direction, and they got Betty Hutton. Only when I got older did I realize that the other performer that has influenced me maybe more than everyone else, Bette Midler, really loved Betty Hutton and did a lot of her songs. Stuff like that version of Hamlet that I do, a crazy version of Bette Midler has done. It's really funny to see that what appealed to me about Betty Hutton is probably the same thing that someone like Bette Midler saw, and maybe that's why I like them both so much. What I really love in all these people, even the people that weren't actors like Keely Smith and Edie Gourmet, when they sing a song, they really tell a story. When they're on stage, they really connect with the audience. There are some freaking phenomenal singers, and I'll give an example, Barbra Streisand, who sings beautifully. And when she's acting in a role, she's great at it. But when she acts and sings at the same time, it's very eyes closed, self-indulgent, sort of like in your own world. And the audience has to sort of go in to be part of that world. And all the performers I really love are performers that kind of do this, and they come to their audience, whether it's a funny song, a ballad, whether they're acting in a play or just on stage. And so all those performers that really sort of went out of their way to connect to the audience, those are the people I loved most. The last name I'll say, somebody who encompasses all that, but is not a female, is Sammy Davis Jr. I think he's the greatest entertainer we have ever had. If you don't know enough about him, please do look him up.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sammy Davis Jr.
And he's the first person I ever heard do a lot of impressions.
He did, yes. He did do impressions, yes. I forgot that. He was one of the first kind of big impressionists, wasn't he? Yeah, he was, and he wasn't known for his impressions. He just did in his concerts. He decided he was a member of the Rat Pack, and he decided to do one song in many voices where he impersonated and sang it as his contemporaries, even some members of the Rat Pack. And he's, to my knowledge, the first person that did that. So every impressionist since then has just sort of ripping Sammy off with love. With love and respect. With love, yes. It's not really ripping off.
No, I think he's the first person I ever heard do it.
I'm sure he would love it that his ideas have gone global.
I think he would.
Now the next set of questions I'm sure will pain you.
Okay.
But you'll get through it, I'm sure.
Okay, here we go.
Jake says you've had a role that you've said for a while was one of your dream roles, but you had help getting it in a really random way.
Okay.
How did the hashtag Bianca for Funny Girl come about?
You know what's funny? I didn't put that hashtag out there. Somebody did when they saw me tweet. So here we go. I had met and many times, many occasions, the fabulous director and choreographer, Stephen Meir. And Stephen Meir and I got along very well. I went to a few auditions. In fact, I'm sure he had a hand in getting me in the room for a lot of those auditions. And they all went well, but it never worked out. It was never the right project for me to be cast and for us to work together. But he never, how do I put this? He never was that person that I forgot about. Like, not just because, oh, he's popular, but he's always so engaged. He always watched everything I posted online. He came to see my concerts. So even though he was this big, high and mighty professional, I did see him like a real acquaintance, like a friend. Not that we hang out and we're best friends or anything, but I didn't feel like he was somebody I had to pretend and posture to be like, oh yes, they're a very important director. Hello, nice to meet you. I was comfortable around him. And because I was comfortable around him, which is rare for somebody who's like a big, high and mighty director, when he tweeted that his next project would be doing Funny Girl in Paris. Like everybody, I assume they already had a Fanny Bryce attached to it, because almost every production of Funny Girl that goes out there these days, there are very few of them, they already have a lead attached. Usually it's a celebrity of some kind. So I saw everyone saying, who's Fanny? Who's playing? You know, I can't wait to see it. And of course, everybody responded in the business. And because I've always wanted to play it, I just thought, oh, you're never gutsy. Just be a little gutsy just once, but playfully, because you're comfortable with him, you could do this. So I wrote something to the effect of, that's so great, I can't wait to see what you do with this production. And I know a petite New Yorker you should consider. That's all I wrote. I did not write a hashtag for myself, but he wrote back publicly, like, you'd be brilliant or you'd be wonderful or something like that. And I went, maybe it's not cast, or maybe it is, and he's saying it anyway. But either way, if an audition notice comes out for this, like if a breakdown comes out, I have to tell my agent I have to be seen. Because if he even thinks I'm remotely right for it, that's a step ahead of everybody else. I've had my agents in the past submit me for Funny Girl. I've never been seen for Fanny Bryce ever. So what happened was, with the hashtag, I believe it was, I could be wrong, I believe it was West End Wilma. West End Wilma saw that. West End Wilma loves my work, and I'm really, really grateful for the lovely coverage and press that I've received in the past. But they're the one that started the Bianco for Bryce, or Bianco for Funny Girl. And at first I was really embarrassed by it, but then a few people retweeted it. I was like, oh, it's really sweet. So yes, it's quite possible I got the audition. I mean, even though we know Stephen thought I was right for it, and sure, it helped to have a little hashtag Twitter campaign. It didn't go viral or anything. Don't get excited. But yeah, it's funny how social media works it out.
I saw it on Twitter. That's how viral it went. That went viral enough that I saw it.
How many more of these can we do? How many more roles? Dream roles. Let's make another one. Well, someone did a Bianco for Elphaba last time, but that never happened. So, they can't all come true.
Well, we'll get one started. There's a question at the end that we might help you for that one. So don't worry.
Okay, cool.
James wants to know, what was it like performing in Paris?
I've been really lucky to perform in a lot of stages all over the globe at this point. It's insanely cool to me, who just kind of thought I'd be in shows in New York playing Seventh Chorus Girl to the left and doing some band work on the side. To say that I played one of the rooms at the Sydney Opera House is like insane, right? But nothing has topped the response that the Parisian audience gave this show. And I genuinely mean that, because the show hit something in them. They're very passionate people. It's a stereotype because it's true. They love harder. They hate harder. They protest and strike harder. Trust me, I know that. I was there. They are really passionate, fiery people. And they'll also tell you when they don't like something in that way. So I was, we were all concerned. We knew we had something good in the rehearsal room, but were the laughs going to come? We did the show in English, and there were subtitles above us in French. Now, not everything can be translated exactly, particularly if you're talking about period New York Jewish slang. You know, it can't be translated exactly. So sometimes we'd do something and people that spoke English would laugh immediately. And then we'd hear a sort of a delayed laugh of people that were reading the teleprompter. So it was really subtitles. So it was really a funny exchange, but we were nervous. Absolutely. I cannot tell you, even opening night, which you think of opening night, of course, it's going to be a grand audience. No, not necessarily. We have heard stories previously. Don't be alarmed if they're really quiet, you know. They were not quiet. They were listening intently when I needed to, really focused. All I could say is it felt like every night the audience was just leaning forward, just with us. And they were so warm and so responsive, and this show touched them. This show really touched them. The story of Funny Girl is not talked about enough. The book of Funny Girl that they changed drastically for the London revival, bless them. I don't think it needed to be touched, and I think our production is proof that it didn't have to. We told the original story, the original script, the original score, and the audience, who doesn't even speak English, got every single bit of it. And because the story has so much heart, it has big flashy numbers, you know, from the Ziegfeld Follies, and it has really small, intimate numbers. It has great slapstick comedy and tragedy. The extremes of the Parisian personality were all in this show.
Yes, makes sense.
And they showed us that every night. The fans kept coming back. We were sold out. We were extended. And for me, gosh, I got so many messages and gifts and notes at the stage door. I cannot tell you how special it was. And I think the last thing I'll say babbling about this is that because France doesn't get as much theater like this, thanks to fantastic creators and artistic directors like Jean-Luc Choplin, who brought me and the show over. He is one of the people that is encouraging this Broadway in Paris, this West End in Paris. And the audiences are really hungry for it. They really appreciate it and they really love it. And they're not jaded about it like some New York or London audiences might be. It's their 8th show. I just saw one last week that was similar. They haven't. And so they really, I mean, they know their stuff, of course. They know the shows, but it's a very different thing seeing it in their own backyard. And so it was like every day was like a big hug.
I was actually talking just before lockdown. I was talking to somebody from France who was overseeing D. Devon Hansen for the first time ever, and they had said, "Oh, we've heard the songs and we've seen clips of them performing on TV and stuff." And this is obviously the US version, sorry, because the UK had just opened. So they were saying, but they were telling me about they don't have the same. They don't have a West End or a Broadway. They have 1 or 2 theatres and that's it.
That's right. And those theatres pull out all the stops and do great shows. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that it's being presented makes them so appreciative. So you've got them upon entry.
Definitely. Gary kind of touches on that a bit with his question and says, what's the difference between a Parisian theatre / audience compared to a New York, London theatre / audience?
New York audiences, it depends on the age group. There's a stereotype that people that go see Broadway shows, even if the show is terrible, they'll stand up at the end. We always say the ticket's so expensive, they stand up to feel like they got their money's worth. That's the joke about that. And there's a joke that there's sort of the reputation that I don't agree with about British audiences, that they're more reserved and don't stand up very often. Now that is actually true. They don't stand very often, but I don't find them reserved. I find, particularly for my solo shows where I'm really engaging with them, they're so much more connected. I do think Americans kind of sit back and watch like this. I'm trying not to get in trouble with my own people, but it's sort of like that like entitled feeling, like perform for me. And I think the Brits are a little bit more inclusive and like, okay, we're all here together. But the Parisians, the passion, and you've never heard bravo, like the crazy claps. And at the end, if they love it, they do like a chant. They all end up clapping together like that. I mean, they see it as they are a group and a unit. And they treat you that way, particularly during a curtain call. So I like that about Paris.
Yeah. I've never seen a show and never stood up.
What did you say?
I've never seen a show and never stood up.
Really?
I'm a New Yorker without being a New Yorker, I think.
Yeah, I reserve my standing up. I do. I try not to be so free with my,
Oh no,
with my
I'm up.
praise.
Use of no matter whether it's.
That's why I don't expect
think,
anyone to ever stand for me. I'm like, I wouldn't do it all the time. I don't blame you. It's fine.
no, I would. Use have put up so much energy and work that you deserve. I should stand at the end and clap.
Remind me to invite you to all of my shows.
That's more than welcome. Yeah,
Thank you, Graham.
I saw you at the Hammersmith, so I'll come in at any point. I'll be there. We're the only one standing. I don't care.
Excellent.
Definitely. Helen wants to know, what did it feel like stepping into Miss Streisand's shoes? And not only Fanny Girl, but it was the premiere stage production of Fanny Girl in Paris. The first time it's ever done.
For Barbara Streisand, this was the defining role. This is the defining moment in her career. So honestly, and of course I knew it. I mean, I didn't see it on Broadway. I was not around, but I've seen the movie, and I knew from listening to the Broadway cast album and the movie recording that they were very different. And so nobody really ever listened to the Broadway album, honestly. It was always the movie. So the first thing I did was say, okay, first of all, you're going to be compared to her no matter what you do. So go out of your way to be absolutely nothing like her.
Makes sense.
And I went, and as soon as I looked at the score, from the play and compared it to the movie soundtrack, I went, it's so different already. We're already off to a good start. Because people that love Funny Girl actually don't necessarily love the musical. They probably don't know the musical. It's hardly done. It's hard to get your hands on that cast album. It really is. You can't even download it on iTunes. You can't buy it. You have to, it's like on YouTube. I listened to it there, and it's crazy. And I mean, I'm a nerd, so I already had it, but from like way back in the day. But I think I saw it as an opportunity. I saw the music that wasn't in the movie as an opportunity for me to really make something my own. I don't even have a preconceived notion to how she sang it because I wasn't as familiar with the cast recording. So I went out of my way to do things differently from Barbara, and I dove into the real Fanny Brice and her material, because Barbara's fantastic, but that is her interpretation of that woman. And it wasn't actually a lot like the real Fanny Brice. I am physically nothing like either of them, but I could relate to what Fanny Brice's struggle was and who she wanted to be seen as. And what I mean by that is she was always told, you're really talented. We just don't know what to do with you. You're not right. You got the wrong look here. There's that line, everything you got's about right, but the thing just don't come out right. And it sounds silly because I've had a lot of opportunities, but I cannot tell you how many times I have heard some almost exact version of those words. It's like, well, I mean, I'm going to be really honest with you guys here. You know, I don't sugarcoat. This business is tough, and I like myself just fine. So don't think I hate myself after this. You look good. You're pretty, but you're not like ingenue pretty. You're not leading lady pretty. But you're not weird looking or funny looking enough to be a full sidekick. You're thin, but not too thin or too heavy. So you also can't play that funny, quirky role. You're way too short to like exist as anything but a child in a show or an old lady. So maybe you should just quit the business for like 10 years and come back when you're older and fatter. These are things I've been told countless times, okay? Lots of people are told versions of this. It's not a woe is me moment. Everybody has their own version of this, but some of us get it more than others.
Yeah.
I'm one of them. The fact that I want to sing different styles and genres of music, the fact that I'm someone, and this is the example I'll use, I do not want to be in the show. I've said it 8 times now, but it sounds like I'm desperate to be in Wicked. I'm not. But if you can sing Glinda and Elphaba, if people out there go, you'd be a great Glinda, you'd be a great Elphaba, you're probably not going to get either part. Because other than Louise Dearman, they don't cast them as the same people. They like very different types. So I never fit a box. And Fanny Brice sure didn't fit a box. She made her own. And Barbara Streisand did the exact same thing. And I'm not as famous as both of those women, but I haven't been able to keep a roof over my head doing nothing but performing and doing what I love because I also made my own box. So I was like, I got it. I've got the key into how to approach this character. I thought in my heart that might be something I brought to the audition that maybe they saw. And so that was where I approached it from.
Great answer.
Long answer again. Boy, here I go. Okay, sorry.
Doesn't matter. It's a fantastic answer. Definitely brilliant answer. Moving on.
He's like, oh boy.
Not at all. Natalie says, what was it like to perform the goddess of a song, that's her words, not mine, Don't Rain in My Parade night after night?
I mean, There were two other songs in the show that I loved singing more than anything. Cornet Man, but I was dancing and came from a number running around before that. And so by the time I started singing it, I was already out of breath at the top of the
Yeah.
song. So I loved it, but it was really hard. And then you've got The Music That Makes Me Dance, this beautiful big ballad. But it's also incredibly hard emotionally after you've gone through the whole show. And typically I've been crying at that point to sustain those very high, very hard notes at the end. So as much in it as I am emotionally, I was still like, oh God, here comes the ending. Don't Rain in My Parade. I didn't have to do anything other than be acting in the zone. So not only is it this most iconic song that even I'd sung a million times, I sang it in Scotland. Somebody reminded me recently, I sang it at a Tonight from the West End performance. It's on YouTube. And I was like, I don't think I'd ever really sung it on a main stage in public before, not just at a karaoke bar, you know, something like that. But that song is big and brassy. It's a song of empowerment. It's fantastic. Iconic. So then I'm doing it with this big, beautiful orchestra. So that's amazing. Center stage in this gorgeous production of Funny Girl, the first ever in Paris. That's a lot, right? But because the song fits in my voice in a really good spot, and because it's at the end of Act 1, and she really is saying, no, I'm going to do this. So because it's a strong moment, and I guess what I'm trying to say is whatever I was feeling, I got to put into it. I didn't have to worry about dance steps like in Cornet Man. I didn't have to worry about this crazy high notes or singing through tears. It was celebratory. And so I got to do that every night. But I will tell you that even in the first sing through ever with the orchestra, I was crying when I did it. And the first couple of shows, I have to hit the last note, right on my parade. And then as I stand there, the curtain falls as the audience is clapping. So I have to stand there in my strong, determined pose as this curtain is falling and to hear the crowd cheering. Sometimes I was just like, it's just so beautiful. I would cry. And then I didn't for the middle of the run.
You're an emotional wreck.
Yeah, I didn't for the middle of the run. At the end of the run, I was a basket case again, but I always held it together until I'd finished the song.
No, it's a fantastic. I think everybody knows that. Whether you know Funny Girl, you know that song.
Yeah,
like that is.
And it goes back. It goes back to what the last question asked when she said, "What was it like? You know, you're originating this part the first time it's done in Paris." It's an honor, and that alone, it's a privilege. We're all privileged to ever perform. To get a significant part is another thing, but that combination of things, dream role, incredible cast, crew, and production team, gorgeous gem music box of a theater in Paris, it was a lot to take on. So the one thing I knew was like I just had to, as much as we like to put ourselves down, as much as the business likes to tell you what you are and you aren't, I think because Fanny Brice was such a unique individual, it helped me just go, you're going to make this your own. And if people aren't going to like it, they're not going to like it. But you just got to do you and appreciate this honor. And so I think that's what I did every night.
Did you expect it to be the success that it was? Because it was massive success.
No, we expected, you know, it's funny. A lot of people will tell you when you're in a rehearsal room and you're working on your baby, you think it's this great thing. I mean, sometimes you know it's not, and you're like, is this? It's not working. But usually people working on it have a great love and understanding for the material that the audience doesn't necessarily get, of course, because they haven't been in the room. And there's a lot of stuff you work on with a director and why certain choices are made, even why certain choreography is in. The audience will never know, but you do. With Funny Girl, every person at one point was like, I think this is really good. Like, we just felt like it was strong. Yeah. Particularly because we knew the script had been rewritten the last time it was done. And we're like, this is really touching. This is really good. And because the original script had not been performed in ages, the director, you know, even Stephen Meyer was like, I've never seen it done like this. In fact, I can't remember the last time I've seen it. He choreographed a version many years ago, but even then there were some changes. So he's like, I don't really know how they did this, but this is how I see it. So there were a lot of fresh takes in our production, even though it was the original script. It's not like, oh, it's usually done like this. Nobody knew. So we all were looking at it with these fresh eyes. When we performed it in Paris to that incredible opening night audience, and then we received rave reviews, and then people from London kept coming to see it and reviewing it, and we kept getting raves. And then, then the New York Times came, and they were like, Warren's supposed to write a review. It's more of a feature on our production and the production of An American in Paris that had been scaled down. They were bringing it back to Paris. But it was a review, and it said the greatest things. I'm going to get teary. I don't know what's going to happen in my career. You never do. You have opportunities come and go. This production of Funny Girl was supposed to potentially have a future life, but because of COVID, I don't know anymore. All I can tell you is you get those moments and you feel down and people tell you, you don't fit in the right box, you're not right for this or whatnot. And you get very few opportunities in life to be a little bit selfish and say, no one could ever take that review away from me. No one could ever take that experience away from me of that whole show. So it's just, it was the icing on the cake because we already loved what we were doing and it was already received so well. But the reviews, oh God, we never anticipated anything like that. And extended, I mean, we extended the show. It was just too much.
Yeah, so moving on. Luke wants to know, what was it like working with Ashley?
Ashley Day.
Yes, Ashley.
Well, he's clearly hideous, so I just had to just pretend I was looking at somebody else the whole time. No, Ashley is one of those. Ashley's one of those really great performers that he's so comfortable on stage. He's been in a lot of big productions, predominantly dancing, and he really never got to show his full acting chops. And so for this show, he was able to show the world that he was more than just a handsome dancer, that he was a true leading man, you know? So that was great to watch people discover that every night. I think about a lot of things and I'm really in my head and I second guess everything. And I will come off stage after a sad scene and sometimes be like, you know, but Ashley is somebody who can kind of click in and click out very quickly. And at first I was like, oh God, he's going to think I'm some like weird head case, like method actor or whatever. But that's just his way of doing things was a nice balance to mine, I think. So yeah, he was lovely to work with. The only downside is I actually didn't get to spend that much time with him off stage. He and I both always had a million friends visiting and whatever. So I mean, he is a friend, but it's funny. I kind of thought like, oh, we'll do everything together, but we didn't. So that's the only negative thing.
Oh, that's great. So it was definitely a moment to write on the life story, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Finally getting
so grateful.
And you've obviously got photos like this that you can take away.
I know. Look, she looks grand, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Very grand.
Look at that.
Oh, I know. I'm performing. And it was the first time we were all in costume and seeing each other. So we'd all come out of makeup and wig. And you've never seen such incredible wig design and everything. And we're coming down and be like, oh, great. Oh my God. I can't believe it. Is that your costume? I think so. We got to change the hat. Like, it was so funny because now stand there and pose. While you're doing it, the rest of the cast had seen you for the first time. And they're like, oh my God, look at that. So it was very distracted in that shot.
I can imagine, yes, I can imagine. How distracted were you in this shot?
You know, I'm so proud of that because let me tell you something. Rat-a-tat-tat is a number that people always forget about in the show. And I have two quick things to say about that. First of all, I, born with 2 left feet, took great pains to go to dance school so I could be a singer who moves well. And on many productions like Forbidden Broadway and, you know, Marvelous Wonderettes, all these shows where it's like a bunch of singers come out and they don't dance. I'm always a dance captain. I love that. Thank you very much because I pick up dances quickly. I'm not by any means a fantastic dancer, but I move well, as they say in the business. And Stephen Mears said to me, can't do his accent exactly, but he was like, don't be embarrassed if the answer's no, but do you tap at all? And I was like, yes, I do. So in that number, with those tall, leggy, amazing dancers and amazing tap dancers, I had a little bit where I got to tap by myself, and it was absolutely the thrill of my life. Granted, it was in a fat suit, but I was able to be very relaxed and very comfortable. I didn't have to suck in or anything. That was great. The other thing is that the first time the cast saw me in that costume, you can imagine it was like a stop and start kind of costume run through thing. I came out and I said, when I come out, they're gonna hold during tech, just to sort of laugh and all see it. Okay, to everybody see it, everybody take it in. Okay, now we can move on, right? I thought it would be fun to slide into a split when they said hold in that costume. Unfortunately, I hadn't done a split in a very long time, and I pulled my hamstring so badly that it's still injured today. That was in November during our tech. or end of October. So yes, kids, always warm up, don't be a hero, and don't go into splits when you haven't done them in at least a year and a half.
Some good advice, yes, some good advice.
True story.
So moving on slightly to one of your other roles, your West End debut, nonetheless. I don't know if this is the exact poster, but there was loads of posters out there for it. So I picked the one that fits best in the frame. Izzy wants to know, what was your, who was your, no, wait a minute, sorry. Start out again, we'll cut that bit. Glenn wants to know, what was it like, Forbidden Broadway, like being your West End debut?
It was extra special to have Forbidden Broadway be my West End debut because it was the show that I had always wanted to be in since I was a little kid in New York City. There are big, bad Broadway shows. We all want to be on Broadway, right? We all want to be in these big shows like Les Mis and you know, all the names, the main big Rent, like all those shows you love growing up. But Forbidden Broadway, I was going to see as a baby. That show was running years before I was even born. And I was listening to their cast albums all through my life. So I was a super fan of that show. To get to do it in New York was incredible. I could talk about it for hours, but I won't because I already have. But all I'll tell you is when I joined the cast, I thought, my God, if I want this, I have like a job for life because the show had been running like 28 years or something. And everybody in it had done it in New York, road gigs, a little tour of it. I thought, wow, this is going to be a job that I get to do for a long time. And almost as soon as I joined the cast, the creator, Gerard Allison Drini, said, this is going to be the last edition. Maybe I'll bring it back in a couple of years for like a one-off, but this is going to be it. So I was like, I just got here and everybody else got to do this for a long time. And now you're taking it away from me. I felt very personal about the whole thing. It was a personal attack. And I was also, and I will say, not to pat myself on the back, but I was really lucky to get a Drama Desk Award nomination for my work in the show.
Yes.
Because it was also like this, again, icing on the cake. I was already so happy to be in the room, to be in the show, to be on a cast recording, even though I had only had that material like 2-3 weeks before I had to do the cast recording, and I hate the way I sound on all those songs and impressions. But I was like, this is too much to have this gift, right? Because of my YouTube videos that went viral, and because of being asked to be on British radio shows and British television shows, and then being asked to do the Fringe Festival and getting on the Paul O'Grady show, because of all of that, I know that when there was the opening for a performer to go into the West End production of Forbidden Broadway, because Sophie Louise Dawn was going into Maiden Dagenham, they went, we need to fill it with somebody. What can we do? They never would have said, let's bring this girl no one's really heard of from the New York production. No. Yes, I got great reviews. Yes, I got an award nomination, but that's not why they did it. They did it because I was being talked about in the UK because of the YouTube videos. But they also would never have said, let's hire some random YouTuber to be in the show. So it was the combination of both. And it felt like
Waitress comes to mind. Well, yes. They might have said that.
Yeah, but I just feel like everything came together.
Yeah.
And then I got the best dream of all. I've always wanted to be in London. I've always wanted to be in a West End show, and to get to do it with the show that I feel like I had cut short, you know, against my will in New York. Again, I've been so lucky. I know a lot of other people will be like, it's not the biggest show in the world, who cares? For me, it meant everything.
It's not the biggest show. I've got to agree. It's not a Les Mis or that, but it's a unique show. There's nothing else like it really in Broadway or West End, wherever they do it. There's certainly it's different.
Yeah.
Definitely. So as he says, who was your favourite to take on in Forbidden Forest, Forbidden Broadway?
Okay. We're back into Harry Potter's world.
Yeah.
It's very hard to pick a favorite, but I know that there's one that put me on the map and probably got me the job, and it's Kristen Chenoweth. I was asked to do a Kristen Chenoweth impression for my first audition. I think I may have offered, but they had me do more and more and more. And I sang something like, popular, ever so popular. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like her. Great, great, great. I had no idea that a few days later, Gerard Allison Drini would hand me this number that became iconic, and I'm pretty sure is what got me my Drama Desk Award nomination, the number Glitter and Be Glib, which, as we've established, I hate the way I do on the cast recording. But singing Glitter and Be Gay, this incredibly hard Leonard Bernstein song from Candide, singing a parody of that 8 shows a week really put me through my paces. It got me, my voice was never better. My soprano was never better than when I had to do that song in that show. And doing that number again on the West End, even though topically the number, because Forbidden Broadway is topical, right? It's about what's currently going on in the Broadway and the West End. And so Kristin Chenoweth wasn't necessarily being talked about in the same way of when that song was created, but nobody cared. Everybody wanted it. And I got to do it on the West End stage and hit my high E every night with luck. And it was just the most incredible thing. So I'm very grateful to Kristin and to Gerard Alessandrini for giving me such a wonderful number.
Yes. Has Kristin ever seen you doing that?
Yes, she has. She's heard me do that number a million times because people kept sending it to her, and we like passed notes through friends. But I've told the story a few times, but I'll tell you guys now. I was singing at an incredible benefit and with a bunch of really cool celebrities, and I was like, oh my god, I get to be in the same room as them, huh? And they wanted me to do an impression number, and Kristin Chenoweth was one of the performers that evening. And so in this impression number, I said, and here's where I typically do Kristin Chenoweth. How do you guys feel about that, given that she'll be in the room? And they're like, you know what, we probably should cut it. And they said, what do you think? I said, well, I know that she's positive about the impression. She's said good things on social media, but I think it's always great to play safe. We don't have to do it. So together, collectively, we decided, don't do Kristin. After that show, I was so excited to meet her, and she came running across this crowded room, and she grabbed me, and she went, hey, you didn't do me. Next time, you do me. You show all these people what we've got. And then she said, like, she'd been waiting for it and was waiting and waiting, and she was so disappointed that I didn't do it. So, oh my God, I'll make it up to her.
Yeah, if you'd done it, she probably would have been happy. So it's
I know, you never know, right? You never know.
You never know. That's the thing. Matt says, apart from Kristin, because we've just mentioned that literally, has anyone else seen you in Forbidden Broadway as themselves, you doing them?
No. Elaine Page saw the company before me. Harry Butler didn't come from Xanadu, but Cheyenne Jackson, her co-star, did, and he loved my impression. Lin-Manuel Miranda came to see our In the Heights sketch, but again, I wasn't impersonating him. So I've had some lovely moments. So my best compliment, it's not exactly the same. Bernadette Peters has never seen me in Forbidden Broadway live, but she's seen my material and seen me impersonate her, and she mentioned me as being a great impressionist, doing an impression of her in an interview. So my head exploded when I read that. So I knew she'd seen it and she approved of it. But I'll take it as equally and cooler in a way is Stephen Sondheim came to see Forbidden Broadway. Wow. And we did a number in homage to him. It was very loving. In fact, we did it we did a different song in London, a Sondheim number, but the one we did in New York, it was very odd for Forbidden Broadway. It really wasn't funny. It was really a love letter because the writer, Gerard Alessandrini, Sondheim is his favorite. So it was this beautiful number, and they wrote in a little Sunday moment. So I come out with Bernadette Peters, hello, Steve, where did you go, Steve? And I had to do that in front of Sondheim. And after the show, he told me my Bernadette was exceptional.
Small.
That's one of those moments you're like, okay, I'm not going to be in Mary Poppins, but Sondheim thinks my Bernadette Peters impersonation is exceptional.
That's it. Definitely. If Sondheim approves, then we all approve. Who cares if you don't approve, basically?
Kind of, yes. I was like, I'm
darling, Sondheim likes me, so I don't care if you like me, you know?
Honestly.
Definitely. Craig wants to know, was it strange doing Forbidden Broadway on the West End as the only American? Obviously being Broadway, being in the name.
No, everybody was so inviting and so wonderful. The only time I ever felt any pressure was when I had to do a British accent. I typically do good accents, but again, when you have the pressure of doing it on stage for Brits, by Brits, oh my God, it was a little different than just doing it in your own room by yourself or in a recording studio. But no, it was, again, I felt like it was an honor. It was a privilege. I was being allowed to do it. That's how I saw it. And the audience response was very similar as well, because we made sure to talk about a lot of West End shows as well. It's called Forbidden Broadway. That's where it started. But when it's done in London, they update the script and add material for that.
Because the whole point of the show is what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
If it was done at the moment, it would be done with it, as well as other classic moments, other shows that are currently on the West End.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. It's to poke nice fun at shows.
Yes, lovingly poke fun and parody and spoof. Not skewer.
No, it's a bit like Saturday Night Live to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a musical version of Saturday Night Live.
That's exactly how I describe it to people that have never seen it before. It's exactly what I say.
To a UK audience,
Saturday Night Live for Broadway.
Yeah, to an American audience, to a British audience, sorry, to our viewers in UK, Saturday Night Live is a bit like Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway.
Yes.
But not as good. No disrespect to America. America will disagree. But Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway is fantastic.
I don't disagree.
Oh.
Maybe that's why they never had me on the show. Anyway.
I'm not going into that. That's fine. So moving on, touching on another role that you've played, not in the UK, but a big role in the UK nonetheless. Nathan says, I saw you at Drury Lane. That's Illinois, isn't it?
Yes, in Chicago, yeah.
Not in the Drury Lane in London.
Not London.
Drury Lane.
I went one day.
Well, the first time I saw that question came in, I'm like, I don't remember it ever being at Drury Lane. Like, Joseph's never been at Drury Lane. It took me a minute, but then I realised, no, once I did my research, I realised it's not that Drury Lane.
Yeah.
So Nathan says, I saw you at Drury Lane as the narrator. Did you have as much fun in the role as it looked like you did?
Yes. For people who don't know, and most people won't, it was a very, very interesting and then suddenly controversial production of Joseph that was set in contemporary modern day Vegas, and was all done like a fever dream, where this guy was in Vegas going through this whole journey. And so, you know how the narrator comes out and pops up and you sort of don't know who she is in most of these productions? Sometimes she's a teacher, sometimes she's this little narrator, sometimes she's some sort of like godlike figure who's telling everybody what happens. And you also know how in Joseph, there are the different styles of songs. Like there's the one where Angel in Heaven, that's a country western, and then there's the sort of calypso, oh no, not me, and Elvis, randomly Elvis, right? So even though it's like it's a biblical story, it never was originally that way. I say this specifically because people always think of Joseph as like the Donny Osmond version that's like really set in like the biblical times, but the original production of Joseph was not like that. They were wearing t-shirts and jeans and they were telling a story. So our director tried to make a new take on it, and set in Vegas. So every time the narrator pops up and all the different styles of music changes, she changed into a different Vegas diva. So I did a lot of the show as me, like there was a neutral narrator in my own voice, but then I was also Britney Spears, Celine Dion, Liza Minnelli, Bette Midler, Shania Twain, and probably somebody else I'm forgetting. Oh, Cher. How can I forget Cher? Because it was the hardest one. Anyway, I always do impressions of people, and I'll put on some wigs and some costumes for my own home videos, but never have I ever had to become the people like this. So I worked out every day and I barely ate so I could wear a Britney Spears Slay For You costume. But other than that, it was the most thrilling and exciting experience. People loved it or hated it. And the people that hated the show probably hated it the second the curtain went up. Like if you saw it and you liked it, you loved it. And we developed this little cult following. It was crazy. You can read reviews, and I will say this, they're like the worst reviews you've ever read or the best reviews you've ever read. There's no happy medium, and that really bonds a cast.
I can imagine, yes.
I will say, to be fair, I think if the show had, I say Chicago, the show is done right, just like a minute outside of Chicago. Had it been downtown Chicago, the response would have been totally different than this very small community where this incredible theater with this really great reputation is. They're in a beautiful theater, the Drury Lane Theater. They've won lots of awards. They're spectacular and bring in top-notch talent and teams. That's why the shows get talked about. But our show pushed the envelope for that theater in a way that they've never done before. And I don't think the public that those, what do you call them? The subscription base appreciated it.
But the fan base of Joseph. Did
Yeah,
Andrew
they
know about
do.
it?
And
Did
everybody's
Mr. Weber know about it?
yeah, in fact, they did have some people come because we had to change a lot of the music. And for some of it, they asked for permission. And for some, don't think I'm ruining anything to say. I think they had to ask for some forgiveness and say, this is what we've done with this. If it's not okay, we will change it. But, I remember the team coming. I didn't meet with them. I remember the date. It was like, well, we'll find out if we have to change the show tomorrow. But if you can imagine, next day far from home, da, 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 da. They took that number and made it sound exactly like a Britney Spears song. They took Pharaoh's story and turned it into a Celine Dion power ballad. The first bit of Go 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 Joseph was sung as Bette Midler styled, I got Joseph, you know what they say, I got Joseph, you make it someday, and made it sound like Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy or something. They took the songs and colored them, much the way that I do when I do my diva mashups and my unlikely interpretations, and they threw these new arrangements in. So these new arrangements were so fabulous, and I wish I could share them with the world. Even today, I'm like desperate. Like, do we have any? Can we share any of the footage? And they went out of their way not to put B-roll up that gave away what we were doing with the show either, which is also to me a tragedy because you can't even go look and see this beautiful show that we did. So it remains this sort of secret, this sort of special gift, this little club that those of us who were a part of it or saw it got to be in. So thank you. Is it Nathan? I'm so glad you saw it, and I'm glad you liked it. We were having a freaking blast.
It certainly sounds like, now that I've heard more about it, it certainly sounds
I'll send
completely
you some
different.
photos because I also like them because they make me feel much better about myself. That's being sarcastic because I was like 10 pounds thinner. It's fine. It's fine. We could talk about that. It's fine.
You look gorgeous, don't you need to worry? And you don't need to worry. A couple more questions to go.
Ready.
Lisa says, what's your favourite song in Joseph?
My favorite song in Joseph. Oh, I do like Pharaoh's story. I really like that song. Strange as it seems, there's been a road of crazy dreams. It's really pretty, and I like the melody very much, and I liked it after the big, brash end of Act 1. How Act 2 is going to go. It's a nice soft moment. That, and of course, Close Every Door is gorgeous. But I got to sing Pharaoh's story, so I really love it.
As we say, you don't actually, as a narrator, you don't actually think you get any part of Close Every Door. That's all Joseph.
Yeah.
Who was Evan, wasn't it? Evan Smith. That was
yes, Evan Alexander Smith. He was wonderful in the role, and he's somebody. Because the casting of Joseph was done a little differently, he would never have been up for that part in the past. He's extraordinarily tall. And although he's got a lovely physique, just skinny, like a tall, skinny guy. They love to cast these very, very ripped Josephs so they can stand there in their loincloth and all that. So it was very fun for him being like 6'3", and me being the narrator at 4'11". But that's what the show was. The show was about extremes and doing things differently. So I'm so grateful. In fact, I got really lucky twice in a row with Joseph. Evan was so much taller than me, but nobody complained. It worked beautifully. And then in Funny Girl, you're mentioning Ashley is about, over 6 foot, and nobody said they're too short. She's too short. They can't possibly be a couple. So hopefully we're breaking those boundaries that people always say, no, you're too short to be with that person on stage. You're too tall. Yeah. So I'm always in these really controversial productions. I don't know. I just bring it out of people.
You're a great performer. That's why. Our last question for tonight. From the fans, our last question is, Simon wants to know, when are we going to next see you in London?
All right. Well, you were supposed to see me in May at the Hippodrome at Lola's doing some fun new shows. So I don't know when they will be rescheduled for, but I will be doing those concerts again at Lola's at the Hippodrome. So that will be happening as soon as they allow it. I know we're moving forward. They're taking those having those test venues open now. So hopefully sooner rather than later. And I can tease, I will be spending a lot of time in the UK in 2021 touring with a show, a stage show.
Oh, touring.
Yes, touring.
A lot of,
a UK tour. So it remains I can't tell you which one it is, but I'm really excited.
Is that an exclusive? Did we get an exclusive?
I can't make it feel. I've teased it before, but
right.
I can tease it today. I can tease it today with more certainty than I did in the past.
Oh, Oh, good. Well,
So
I like it.
you're not rid of me
We
yet,
don't press
UK.
for them, but I like when we get them.
Yeah.
We're not that kind of podcast. We like when we get a bit of exclusiveness.
Yeah.
So moving on to our last bit.
Okay.
It's the not so quick fire round.
I think I've proved I can't be quick anyway. That's
No, don't worry. So the first question this round is, what is your dream role? If you had, I know
Currently,
you've done Fanny Bright.
I have two right now. The two that I'd most like to play, and they're both cliche, but I don't care. I want to play Dot in Sunday in the Park, and I want to play Ava in Evita.
Right, we'll get them started. That's your new hashtag. So we'll get them
Hashtag
started.
Bianco for Evita. Let's get it going.
We'll get it going, 100%. We will get it going, don't worry. Anyway, moving on, what is your dream? Do you have a dream gender bend role? That's a role traditionally played by a male.
Okay, so George and Sunday in the Park, obviously. But I love the show City of Angels, and I like Stein in City of Angels. I love his songs so much.
I'll get back to you in that one because unfortunately my ticket for that got cancelled.
Yeah.
It's currently on the West End,
And I was
currently
supposed
on
to
the
see
West
it too, and Stephen Meyer did the choreography. So yeah.
Yeah,
really
hopefully it will reopen when theatres reopen. But we'll wait
there
and
are a
see.
lot, but those are the two that came to mind first for gender bend roles.
Definitely. No, that's a great. I love that question because a lot of the men are like, "Oh, Elphaba."
I dig it. No,
Put some thought into it. Come on, mate, guys. Put some thought into it. And no disrespect to Elphaba. Elphaba's a fantastic part. That's no insult to Elphaba. We've actually got 2 Elphabas coming up. We've got We've got Louise Dearman coming up soon.
Just tell her that I'm a little bit obsessed with her, if that's okay.
I will do. I'll pass that one. And we've also got Kerry Ellis, who also played Elphaba. And both
I've been lucky enough to work with Kerry Ellis, and I love her to death.
So she's coming up soon as well. So I just can't believe how this is going. But anyway, dream impression. We've added this one. Is there anyone that you really want to try that you haven't yet?
Oh, I've tried, but I can't do it. Dream impression, I can't sound anything like Mariah Carey, and I can't sound anything like Ella Fitzgerald, and those two things kill me.
There we go. Maybe a bit more in practice and you maybe get there. What is your favourite musical theatre song? You don't have to have performed it. It doesn't have to be.
My favorite musical theatre song is still a very classic standard. It is So in Love from Kiss Me Kate. Some good old
yeah.
Strange dear, but true dear, when I'm close to you, dear, the stars fill the sky. So in love with you am I. Is there any prettier song?
Not much. No, not much. I can agree with that one. That's another musical bit like Funny Girl. It's not done very often, especially not in the UK.
No, they've done it. They've done a few revivals of it here in the States.
Yeah.
And I saw the production for people that want to hear a beautiful version of it. Not the most recent revival. The one prior to that was with the wonderful, now sadly late Maren Maisie and Brian Stokes Mitchell, and it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. They were both brilliant. So if you listen to that cast album, you're doing it right.
And last question of the night is, what's your top 5 shows?
Top 5 shows.
You don't have to have been in them.
I'm not going to think about this. So Into the Woods, always been my favorite. Into the Woods. I've just said Sunday in the Park. We're going to go with Sunday in the Park. I have a real soft spot for Evita. I love Evita. It's my favorite Weber show. Oh man, City of Angels. This is City of Angels. We're going for a 5th now. Ooh, dark horse here. It's a part I really want to play. I loved the musical Bright Star that not many people know, and frankly is very split. People either really love it or they don't. There's no happy medium. It's a lot of bluegrass mountain music from the States. Mm-hmm. It's not country. It's really, really period and cool. And I loved the story. I loved the music. I loved that it was the whole thing about the production. I loved it.
No, that's a good one. Our last wee activity tonight. Okay. Have you heard of the Ice Bucket Challenge?
Yeah, I've heard of that. That might be it.
I think it was. I think in America it was the ALS. It was ALS or ASL.
Yeah, but they still called it that.
No, we're not going to make you do it. Don't worry. We're not that cruel. But basically, the whole point now is you were to do the Ice Bucket Challenge, and then you were to nominate somebody to do the next one.
Right.
Well, we're doing the West End Talk nomination.
Oh.
And for this, we get you to nominate as many people as you want, but obviously minimum 1. And that can be anyone from stage, screen, so stage, TV, film, that you know, preferably, because the point of there is to get them in to do a talk.
Mm-hmm. I have the person already.
All right, okay, on you go then. Take it away.
She's one of my new favorite human beings. Someone that I want to be like when I grow up. She played my mother in Funny Girl, Rachel Stanley.
Since you said mum, I knew
she's like West End royalty. She's been in a million shows. She's an incredible dancer, an incredible actress, an incredible singer, and she's going to be going to Paris again in November to be in 42nd Street. They're bringing this big show back, so she'll have some interesting stuff to talk about because she'll get to be on stage, one of the first performers on stage since COVID. So not only does she have a wealth of knowledge, she's got some pretty cool stuff coming up. She's one of the funniest people I know, most talented and the kindest, and I still think she's just the coolest. The way she dresses, her hair, her eyes. I just really want to be her, but like not in a creepy way, in a really respectful way. Rachel Stanley, that's who I nominate.
That's fantastic. So what we need to do now is go onto Twitter after you're finished, pop up a tweet to say you've just done your talk with West End Talks, and tag me in it.
Excellent. I'm ready for it.
And pop that and tag her in that post, and we'll get her in. That'd be a great name to get. But that's us. You have survived.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
It was great fun. All that's left for you guys at home to remember is the charity. As much as Christina just said, we've had fun. It's not the whole point of it being here. It's to help acting for others. I'll very much need
Please
charity.
Donate anything you can. As we all know, a little goes a very long way. So any help is appreciated.
Yeah, we do steal Tesco's saying. Tesco's, I don't know, do you know Tesco's? It's a shop over in the UK.
Of course I do.
I was just checking. We steal their slogan, every little helps. So anything at all, pop it in the bio below. Pop it in the link in the bio below, and it'll go straight to them. That'll be much appreciated. And join us next time when I am letting Robbie loose again, and he's doing his next interview. He's only done one so far. He's doing his next interview. I don't know why I've let him loose again after the first one. But his next interview with Christina Modestou, and she was in Six, We'll Rock You, and Shrek the Tour. Yes. So she'll be talking all things like that, all things Six, the Drive, and all that. It'll be fantastic. So join us then. But Christina, thank you very much. It has been a genuine pleasure.
A pleasure. Hope to see you guys in person very soon.
Oh, very soon, yes. Especially on that tour that you talked about. But thank you very much. Take care. Bye now.
Bye. Thank you.
Where my soul was in the